Good morning, Sarah.
Good morning, Louise.
I'm just blown away. Here we are, chapter 16,
The
the
final
final,
chapter. I know.
final
We have one
chapter.
more wrap up episode
hmm
in after this, and then we're on to our next book, which should we say what it's going to be?
Yeah, you say, tell what.
We are going moving on if for YouTube people who might are looking. It is Journey of the Adopted Self, A Quest for Wholeness by Betty Jean Lifton, who is an adoptee, was an
Yes,
adoptee.
yes. And
So
she helped
yes,
inspire the writing of Nancy Verrier.
yes. So
So
we're excited to get started on that.
very
And
excited.
mixed sad
We
goodbye to the primal wound.
were just sitting here before we got on saying, "Oh, this is the end." It's very sad. So
Yeah.
the
It's been
perfect,
so
oh,
enlightening, this
it's been
book. I
so
mean, life
enlightening.
changing, life changing.
I'm gonna always keep this because of all our notes in it and
I know.
everything. So thank you, Nancy Verrier, The Primal
Yes.
Wound.
Thank you, Nancy.
And here's chapter 16, Honor Thy Children, which
Mm.
that could not be a more perfect title for the end of this book. So she gets into the beginning of this with challenging assumptions, which I really liked because she says, there's been a general assumption on the part of many people that if a relinquished child is placed with adoptive parents early enough, he or she will not experience separation trauma. This is an assumption to which she takes exception, which
Hmm.
I think we've completely discussed in this book. But
Yes, absolutely.
but she really gets into it's ignoring what infants know. And I think that's the research that I'm so interested in learning of what, because she does get into some cool stuff here about what babies really know. And it made me think about we were talking personally, some things that came up. I was with my biological mom a few days, which I never knew until more recently in my life. And then I actually had, a really great adoption experience as far as adoption experiences go. And I think, wow, did that help me more than it would? We had a last guest who talked about that. Did those few days help?
Well, it's interesting because as I was reading this, I was just thinking about, and you and I always discuss this when we had our business together,
Yeah.
having this sort of sliding doors
Yes.
within our own relationship. You were, so you, as you find out, you were with your birth mother for a few
Yes.
days. And then you grew up in this very happy family.
Yes.
I, on the other hand, was immediately taken away from my birth mother. She wasn't even allowed to hold me or
And
breastfeed
total
or
trauma.
anything. And then my adoptive family, well, for the first 7 years with my mom was great. But after she left, it was just pure trauma for
Yeah.
all these years. And look at our lives. You're married and a happy marriage. I'm not, like,
Well, I always think, I wonder, like, if it is that, if it comes down to that, because she talks about that with the babies, the importance of that bond that really that we ignore in society. So she gets into, if there's any way, I thought this was interesting. If we're going to pay other people to raise children, why can't we pay the birth mother
oh
to
boy, did
raise the child?
I not mark that down as well. That really stood
Yeah,
out to me.
like if we're going to give money towards
To
other,
foster parents and, why not put those resources into helping the birth family and parents stay together? I mean, it's really
yeah, I thought, okay, there is an enlightening fact right there, because many women, if it's truly just financial, which is a lot of people that she has this whole thing where she says, people are given up for the feeling of financial, but they're kind of pressured, like, you do the right thing, give your baby up to a loving
do what's
family.
better for the baby to have a, financially secure
Yes.
life.
Yes. And she's in no way, again, we're saying this, she's in no way saying there shouldn't be adoption and there shouldn't be homes that loving people can take
And
in
particularly
children.
adoption for foster kids that,
Yes.
whose parents, like, for whatever the circumstances were. But in
Yes.
general, if financial instability is the only reason people are giving up their kids for adoption, then that needs to be readdressed.
Yes. And she gets into the whole thing of, if there's if you're going to adopt, really know, am I doing this for the best case of the child?
Mm-hmm.
And is the child going to be benefiting from me adopting the child? And am I ready to not have any expectations? Not that there won't be great expectations that come, great things may happen, but I need to have low expectations of that child just immediately loving me.
Or no expectation.
Or no expectation.
I think is what
I thought that was she writes it so well, because she just makes it, here it is. One has to be willing to sacrifice a great deal and expect nothing in return. This does not mean they will get nothing. They just should expect nothing. It is necessary for such a couple to know their Achilles heels, their own vulnerabilities, because these children are going to push all their buttons at one point. This is a dilemma. Not everyone is cut out to adopt children, yet there are ones who truly need stable homes. So the best question someone can ask is this good for our children?
I'm guessing people things have evolved now, to where people are, but like in the baby scoop era, how many adoptive parents were asking themselves those questions? It just wasn't even part of the conversation, I'm guessing.
I don't think it was either. And that's not their fault. That's the society people were in, right?
Exactly.
So, I mean, it's just the way it was. And it gives, we've had so many great guests. It gives me hope. We had Casey on, and I was thinking about him while reading this, he and his wife, and how they did ask these questions, and they do have the loving ability to talk to their child about things. And he did need a home, and they do want an open relationship, and they want to know the conversation. That's the kind of thing going forward, which is going to create healthy adoptions, healthy families.
There were a couple other things that I thought jumped out to because that kind of ties into self-esteem.
Yes. That's a good part.
The key to self-esteem may lie in the initial relationship of a child to the mother.
Isn't that fascinating? Could that really, that's that thing. Could that be it?
Yeah. And I think, so many adoptees suffer from low self-esteem. And it takes many, many, many years, if ever, to repair that.
Yeah. You and I have bonded over that, and we still have the different situations, and yet I still have self-esteem issues. So, I mean, even if that's what we always say, all adoptees have this stuff.
Yes. Not that other people don't have low self-esteem, not to discount other people. Well, anyway, that was kind of a jump out.
Everybody gets their self-esteem. Yeah.
A lot of adoptees, because Nancy then gets into the future adoption. What about adoption then? If the separation trauma is so devastating, what should we do? This is not an easy question to answer. It depends on many factors. Adoption is still the best solution for those children who would otherwise languish in foster care or orphanages. But the procurement of babies by some of the methods going on today is, in essence, the buying and selling of human lives. And this is unconscionable. Some of the on adoptee Twitter, I've noticed there's a big fight for, instead of complete relinquishment and adoption and erasure of the person's former identity, to have legal guardianship. And that is, I think, an interesting
I've been reading that
talk
too
about and look into,
it is, because maybe there is a point where we just change what adoption is. And
do we? So, I mean, maybe that is something to look into and something to consider. Things do need to, and they have been changing since our time, but
yes, they have. And I think the conversation, I think what you said is really going to be the big thing, because we've been getting emails about it, the Me Too movement of adoptees.
Oh yes, our adoptees Me Too moment.
We're getting a lot of emails about that. And I actually think, you may have coined something there, because I think it is the adoptees Me Too movement. And also with Rebecca Autumn's movie and some things that are happening. People are writing a lot of books right now that are coming out. I mean, I just think this is the time, with the conversation that's going on in the country, that this is going to be discussed. So it couldn't be
finally
more
out in the
timely.
open, and adoptees having voices, because this narrative has been controlled forever by the adoption industry.
Yes.
and adoptive parents, and birth mothers and adoptees have been left out of the conversation. And now
Yeah.
that we have social media and Twitter and an active voice and things, and we can call attention, and our voices can be heard.
They can. I still feel like birth mothers are left out more than anybody in some ways. That's the least, even for us, we'd love to have a birth mother on. It's hard. That's
I think it's painful for,
yes.
I have a friend, and I, asked her to be on, and she really thought about it. And then she said she just had never talked about it publicly. And it was still, I think, just still raw. I think that's the thing. It's still raw.
Still raw. Like she can talk to you as a friend about it, but coming on and really getting in there, it's like, wow, do I want to open that up? I mean,
and to scrutiny and
just everything. Well, that's talking about the next part where she gets into society's attitudes must change. I mean, that's the thing, because there's so much shame in all this, which there shouldn't be. This is just people get pregnant and have babies. And it's like, we're a funny country that we can't help people when we have babies. I mean, it's a strange thing, but
let's force them to have them and then ignore them when they do.
Yeah, it's a very strange thing. So she says, my purpose in writing this book is not to discourage adoption, but to have the understanding of it. What an individual mother decides to do when she finds herself pregnant, she needs to do with the most information she can obtain and the whole concept of life of the mother-child relationship. And whatever her decision happens to be, she needs love and support from those closest to her. And I think that's been missing for the birth mother, the love and support of those closest to her. Not all birth mothers, of course, but this is it's a very, especially in our eras, like you're kind of a bad kid. You'll have your baby. Don't think about the rest of your life.
So that reminded me, and gosh, I need to call her, but my birth mother, her adoptive father and his brother, they both adopted Tilda and then this woman, Anita. So cousins, right? They were both adopted at the same time. And anyway, Anita randomly found our podcast and realized that I was Tilda's daughter that she never knew about.
It's crazy.
Until our podcast. And so she reached out to me and she told me that Tilda, and she said, well, Tilda's mother, her adoptive mother, was very, very strict. And so she probably forbade Tilda to discuss my birth. But she said that when Tilda, there were a year or so that Tilda kind of dropped out of her life and she barely saw her. And she's now putting two and two together that it was after Tilda had me, and she thinks she went into a depression. And then she got pregnant again with someone else and had this baby. And that was when Anita saw her again with Stefan, my brother.
You need to connect with her. That is,
because they were both adopted. And anyway, she has a lot of early memories of Tilda that I'd love to hear.
She's going to know exactly how she felt about you and what happened. And
well, she won't know that because Tilda was not allowed to talk about it. So it wasn't until now, all these years later, that Anita realized, oh my gosh, she had a baby that she gave up for adoption.
She was like missing for that. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I'm curious to find out what you find from that. You need to fill us in on the next. I'm going to be part of that journey.
Yes. It's been, I really dropped the ball and I need to contact her. One thing I did want to point out, we've said this all along, but Nancy says this in the last chapter: adoptees have a right to understand their own feelings and to have them validated, and to have the clinicians to whom they go for help understand their issues of abandonment and loss. Too many of them have been made to feel abnormal or crazy when they simply have been responding to that early experience.
Yes.
And that potential adoptive couples need to be informed about the primal wound and the impact it will have.
Yes. Well, this is a lot of teenagers, right? But I remember a breakup I had in high school, and it was one of my first, where you fall in love with somebody and you break up and you're devastated and what's happened. And I remember I couldn't handle it. I couldn't handle it. And I was crying and acting crazy. And I remember the guy said to me, "What's wrong with you? Are you crazy?" And when I read this part, I remember going through the rest of my life because of that, still feeling those feelings with relationships of men and women and friends and anything that may end, especially in the love relationship, but having that, oh my gosh, I am crazy and I have to suppress it something's wrong with me because of that abandonment. Like abandonment is so huge for me, as for you, as for all adoptees. And I know it is for many people. So we're not negating other communities that have abandonment issues, but it is such a core thing that even now, even in my marriage of something, I'm like, oh, don't leave me. You know, it's so deep, right? But
I
that
think,
when she
I
said
think
crazy, it really triggered something where I was like, oh,
to
we've all,
distinguish, I do think, yes, other people, we're
yes,
not, hijacking the abandonment
right,
issues. However, we
we
start off life with that core issue.
with them.
It's,
Yep.
I think, and everything stems from that, where other people may have
Develop them.
abandonment,
Yes.
but this is our core. It's
Yes. That's a
the
good
thing
way
that
to say it.
everything's. It just occurred to me where everything just stems from that one issue.
It really does. It's how you and I bonded. It's how when I meet another adoptee, we're like, oh yeah, I have that too. Like it's just that core thing. And when she wrote the words, people think there's something about the word crazy that really triggered.
Oh my gosh,
right?
It makes me so mad.
Where I'm like, no, I'm not crazy. I just want to be loved. You know?
I don't have a borderline personality,
and when people do abandon you, it's very painful. It's a
Yes.
different kind of pain. It's almost like another death. I avoid relationships to not get abandoned. And I know you've had that too. And as we get older, we try not to, and we're very healthy and we work on it. But the core is like, if I think I'm going to get hurt, I'm going to abandon that relationship early for myself. And you have that too. And I just think, wow, she's really on this, Nancy.
She really, yes, she is.
Well, do you want to sum it up? Let's tell you the very end of the book, Sarah.
If we are going to put children first, we are going to have to face with courage and determination the truths about how our decisions impact these children. We are going to have to challenge our previously held ideas and deal with family, no matter how difficult and painful it may be. Acknowledging our vulnerabilities, limitations, and obstinacy in dealing with adoption is crucial to having more honest relationships with our children. Our children deserve it, and we deserve it. Let us begin.
Let us begin. I like that ending.
I do too.
Thanks, Nancy.
Thanks, Nancy. And the next episode, we will be just kind of doing a wrap up of the whole series, the whole first season. And we'll have a final guest before we move on. So
Lynn, let's get to our guest today who really ties into all of this.
Yes, she really does. She really does.
Can't wait.
Yeah. See you then.